Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our January 18th North Middlesex Council meeting. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:03. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. If you have any, please forward them through to Richard. Minutes of the previous meeting. Any errors, omissions, or business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, looking for a motion to accept. Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, we need to adjourn our regular meeting to proceed to public meeting, including committee of adjustment. Do we have that motion? Councillor Keogh, seconded by Councillor Cornelison. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our first order of business is committee of adjustment and public meetings under the Planning Act. Notice of public meeting to consider application B1 2023 located at 187 Else Craig Main Street. And it's for a lot creation. So Stephanie, if you'd like to begin. Is the applicant here or they're going to be online or?
They're joining us online.
Joining online? Maybe we should just wait until they're here. I hope so. I was just going to ask that. It's it's pretty hard to do from up here too right now. Let's just see if we can't fix it. Try that. Is that better? Okay. Yeah. All right. Do we have our applicants online?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
All right, I'll begin.
We are still pretty loud by the sound of it.
All right, I'll try to talk softly, although I am a loudspeaker. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with a recommendation regarding a proposal to create one new infill lot along Elsa Craig Main Street from a property known municipally as 187 Elsa Craig Main Street within the urban settlement area of Elsa Craig, which can be seen on the screen in front of you. The lands proposed to be severed are currently vacant. Structures are unserviced and does not have an existing access off of Elsa Craig Main Street at this point in time. And the lands to be retained contains a single detached dwelling and an accessory building. The lands are serviced by a municipal water and sanitary connection and have an existing access off of James Street. It should be noted that a minor variance application was submitted concurrently with the severance application to seek permission for a reduced minimum frontage for the severed lands and a reduced interior side yard setback for the retained lands. The variance application will be scheduled at a subsequent public meeting pending committee's decision on the consent file this evening. The provincial policy statement, county official plan generally permit lot creation within settlement areas subject to servicing and compatibility. The subject lands are located, as mentioned, within the settlement area of Elsa Craig, which is serviced by municipal water and municipal sanitary systems. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal is considered to be in conformity with the provincial policy statement and county official plan, as commercial and residential uses are directed to be located within settlement areas on full municipal services. The central area policies within the North Middlesex official plan permit a wide range of uses, included but not limited to commercial and residential. The central area located along Main Street in Elsa Craig is intended to be multifunctional in nature. Intensification and infilling is encouraged within the central area land use designation policies. The proposed severance would create an infill lot, which would result in a future development opportunity subject to policy criteria within the central area land use designation and the residential commercial RC zone. And any future residential development containing greater than 10 residential units or any proposed commercial use would be subject to the site plan control process. The subject lands have frontage along Elsa Craig Main Street, which is considered to be a year-round maintained public road. The proposal is considered infilling as the subject lands are located within the settlement area, the built-up settlement area within Elsa Craig. The creation of the infill lot is not anticipated to compromise the long-term use of the retained lands, which is currently used or occupied, by a single detached dwelling. Based on the above, staff are the opinion that the severance application is in conformity with the North Middlesex official plan. In terms of zoning, the lands to be severed meets the residential commercial zone minimum lot area of 600 square meters. And as mentioned, the applicant has applied for a variance for it'll be scheduled for the February 1st council meeting for frontage of 17.05 meters, whereas 18 meters is the required minimum. And while the applicant has confirmed that there is no immediate development proposal for the lands, the applicant has provided a consent sketch, which I will share on the screen. So it did include a building envelope. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it does demonstrate what would be the building area that would meet the requirements of the RC zone. And as mentioned, staff would review any future development proposal against all applicable policies and identify any additional planning applications that may be required at the time that a development proposal does come forward. Notice of the application was circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. AuSable Bayfield Conservation Authority had no concerns. The County of Middlesex engineer did require, as a condition of the severance application, land dedication of 15 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 7 across the severed and retained lands if the right-of-way is not already to that width, as well as a 0.3 meter reserve along the frontage of the retained lands to restrict all access to the corner lot from James Street. Enbridge Gas did note service lines are in the area that may or may not impact the development. The chief building official did provide comments on lot grading, did require that the well located on the retained lands be removed, and that he did bring to the attention of overhead wires that are located on the severed lands that should be addressed as part of the conditions. The North Middlesex Public Works Department did confirm that there is water along the frontage of the property and noted that any new connections would be subject to fees at the time of connection in conjunction with obtaining any permits necessary from the county, as the road is under their jurisdiction. And that's a similar comment in regards to sewers as well. Staff did receive 2 written submissions from the public. Concerns included compatibility with the surrounding land area and increased traffic. And the full extent of those comments have been included on the agenda for council's consideration. And I believe we may have a few members of the public here in person that may want to speak to the application as well. So with that being said, it is staff recommendation, that the application be granted, subject to the conditions that are before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, I would ask if the applicant is with us, if they have comments to make.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council. My name is Casey Kolchicki. I'm a senior.
Hey, Casey, hold on one sec.
Okay.
Okay, try again.
Good. Can you hear me now?
No. We'll get it straightened out. Technology is wonderful when it works, isn't it? Try again.
How about now? Any luck?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Casey Kolchicki. I'm a senior planner with Zelenka Priamo Limited, and I'm representing the applicant on the consent application that is before you tonight. I just want to take this time to thank Stephanie for her work on this file to date. I have reviewed her staff report, the recommendation, as well as the conditions of consent, and I'm in agreement with all of the above, and I'm on hand to address any questions that members of council or members of the public might have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Next, any public would like to make would make comment? Any comments from the public? Come forward if you'd like to adhere to the desk. Just give your name, please, to the record.
Good evening. My name is Blair Stewart. I live in Elsa Craig, immediately beside the property that this severance concerns. I represent the Pettits, the Saltons, the McKeekans, the Oosterwalls, the McNairs, the Stewarts, the Austins, all neighbors in the immediate area who are not happy with how the people in the existing property have handled their business. The existing property is a 5-bedroom boarding house that is a revolving door. It is not a leased property. It is very transitory. We are concerned with a severance that the word we were given was that there'd be a 4-plex built there. We don't know if it's a lease situation. We don't know if it's more transitory workers that are going to be coming in there. We are very concerned about the amount of parking. To park in off of number 7, if it's a 4-plex, as we were told that they want, provides a lot of traffic. Even to do an easement across the back of the James Street property needs 9, at least a minimum of 9 parking spaces. We're concerned about all of those things. And so wanted to come to this meeting to see what the circumstances were after this house, the current house was purchased a couple of years ago. At one point, they were parking used farm implements in the separate lot. We just wish that it could be done in a decent way to match the area. It's a very historic area. Our house is 155 years old. There are other homes in the area that are very similar in age. It's a nice part of the town. We're concerned that there's not going to be any control on who's coming in. The area actually has changed from from an older age demographic to newer families and small children. And we just want to see that there's going to be some control. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Claire. Would the applicant like to comment to those remarks?
In response to that, as Stephanie mentioned in her presentation, at this time, the ownership group of the existing lot is looking to sell the severed lot as a vacant piece. They haven't spoken to any prospective buyers yet. They have the listing ready to go. They're just waiting to see if the approval is granted for the severance. With regards to rumors of a fourplex, that's all I can say. They are just rumors. As I said, the ownership has no plans to build anything there themselves. Just to expand on the fourplex notion, based on the current zoning that's in place, in order to construct a fourplex on the property, additional variances beyond what we applied for would be required. So if under the new ownership a fourplex was to be proposed, they would have to come back to council with a future minor variance application beyond the scope of what our minor variance application to be heard on the February 1st has. So, rest assured that currently fourplex wouldn't even be able to be constructed without additional planning applications. And Stephanie can probably confirm that through the consent process, there's going to be one of the conditions is going to be a development agreement that has to be entered into that will speak to certain planning and engineering matters being met for that severed lot.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the public on this? And then well, step forward. Give your name, please, when you come up.
My name is Ronna Austin, and I also live in Elsa Craig. I'm part of the group that Blair was referring to. And just on hearing these recent comments, I would just also like to say that regardless of whether or not it's a fourplex or not, if you are familiar with Elsa Craig and you actually drive by and you look at that lot, I mean, presumably if they wish to sever it, if somebody's going to spend the money to buy it, they're going to want to build. They're going to want to build a building on there. And if you look at that property and picture a building there just simply is not enough space in the width of that lot for anything to fit in that would look proper in the neighborhood, to look like it belongs there. And all of the existing homes are nicely spaced. They've got a little bit of yard. It's just pleasant to look at. And secondly, also regarding access to the lot or parking, if these two lots particularly are going to be owned by separate individuals, it may be well and good to have an easement or an allowance through the existing property where the existing house and outbuilding is. But I can see, depending on who the ownership is of each lot, I can see where having an access through someone else's property is just not always going to result in friendly terms. You just never know what's going to happen. Why do we want to risk that? Why do we want to take that chance? It just really doesn't seem to me that this is a good idea at all. Not for Elsa Craig and not for any prospective buyers either. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ronna. Any other comments from public on this application? Seeing none, I would turn this over to the committee for questions, comments. Counselor Daigle, you first.
I have one question, and that when I read the requirements, there talks about a 1 foot right of way being taken. I just like that explained to me. Is that along the lot line between the severed property and the retained property?
So through the mayor to the councillor, the county of Middlesex has policies in regards to accesses from county roads. So this being a corner lot that fronts both a county road and a local road under the jurisdiction of North Middlesex. The county's policies speak to having the access on the local road rather than the county road. So the 3 meter reserve was along Elsa Craig Main Street, but only on the retained lands. So it would prevent a driveway from being accessed on the retained lands, which already has access on the side road. However, it would not prevent a new driveway to be established for the new lot going forward.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Counselor Irwin.
Yeah, I might have a couple of questions here. First, can you refresh me on the parking requirements for both a single detached dwelling and a fourplex?
So through the mayor to the councillor, let me pull that up. I believe for a single detached, the requirement is 2 parking spaces. Just give me a moment to navigate to the right section in the zoning bylaw here. So for single detached, semi-detached, duplex, triplex, double duplex, so that is a fourplex, it is 2 per dwelling unit, plus parking required for accessory apartment or bed and breakfast establishments where applicable.
Okay, so just to make that clear, because the echo in here is deafening. 2 spaces for single detached, 2 spaces per unit for duplex, fourplex, etc. So this potentially, I'm not going on rumor, but if it is a fourplex, will require 8 parking spaces.
Through the mayor to the councillor, that's correct, yes.
Okay. Can I have, through your worship, the planner's professional comment on the size of the building envelope on the diagram presented? Because it looks much larger than a single detached building. Am I looking at this wrong?
Can we put that back up again, please?
Is the dotted line all the way around the inside the building envelope?
So through the mayor to the councillor, what a building envelope shows is essentially it is identifying the area in which a building could be built,
Okay.
which would meet the front yard setback of 7.5 meters, which shows this front line here, as well as the minimum interior setbacks and the rear lot line setbacks. So this is kind of the area in which a building can be built. Lot coverage would also have to be taken into consideration depending on the type of building that's being proposed at the time.
So basically what we're showing here is within that envelope, the building can be placed and the rest it can't be. Okay. So thank you for that. In your professional opinion, is there adequate space for 2 cars to be parked with the reduced front lot coverage?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is a challenging question to address, given that we are not sure what the form of use is going to be. The RC zone permits a list of commercial uses, for example, that would each have their own required parking space, as well as pretty much all forms of residential development standard to the R1, R2, and R3 zone. So it would really be up to the future owner to demonstrate that they were able to meet any parking requirements prior to being in a position to obtain a building permit. And as mentioned, if there was a need for a future variance or planning application, staff would again evaluate that at the time where the proposal is brought forward.
And just for clarification, can you clarify the current zoning for the facility and what can be built under the current zoning?
Yes, I can read the list. So the current zoning for the lands as a whole is the residential commercial zone. So it currently permits today. So without the severance, the zone change is not being proposed at this time. So permitted uses are art gallery, convenience retail establishment, dry cleaning or laundry establishment, eating establishment, the florist, funeral home, museum, office, optical establishment, personal service shop, pharmacy, retail store that carries only handcraft works, antiques, or clothing, a studio, any residential uses permitted in the R1, R2, R3 zone, subject to the zoning requirements therein, converted dwelling, crisis care facility, day nursery, home occupation, and dwelling units are permitted above a commercial use.
All right. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear enough. Your worship, another question, if I may. With the severance, how will this lot be zoned? Or is that for the next meeting?
So through the mayor to the councillor, there is no zone change proposed at this time. So should any future owner or the current owner wish to establish a use that is not currently permitted, then there would be a need for a rezoning application.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cornelius.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Stephanie, is there any tools in our official plan that would be able to influence what can be built there? Or is that a question that could be answered at a later date?
So through the mayor to the councillor, the lands are designated central area, and it is intended to be multifunctional in nature. So it is quite a wide range of both commercial and residential uses that are permitted or contemplated within the official plan, which is then mimicked in the zoning category, which I just listed off those uses. There are other criteria that speaks to height and massing that certainly will be evaluated once a proposal does come forward.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of the comment that we heard from the public in terms of a structure that would complement or match the existing homes there. Is there anything in our toolbox that would allow for that?
Through the mayor to the councillor, without urban design guidelines, it's challenging for, from a planning perspective, to implement, I guess, anything in regards to facade or building standards.
I have one final question, and that is in terms of the policy for more homes built faster, and in the event that this application is not successful, would it meet criteria for appeal to the land tribunal?
So through the mayor to the councillor, so as a result of Bill 23, appeal rights have changed for severance applications. So third-party appeals are no longer accepted by the Ontario Lands Tribunal Board, meaning members of the public do not have appeal rights.
Okay.
Any other questions right now? Committee? No other questions? I have a couple of comments on it I would like to make. Stepping into the committee is that I believe there's an appropriate place for these smaller lots, and that is we have a new subdivision coming in Dale Sprague. We'll be talking about later this evening. And I think that's appropriate because that's how those lots are laid out. And I've seen what's happened when we approved a lot like this on William Street in Elsa Craig, where they put 4 houses where there could have been 2 or 3. And so I am going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to support this application. I just want the committee to know And I'm doing it from, not from the planning side, but from the community and the town side of it. Because I do agree that coming into that community, it has a look to it. And I don't think it matters what they put in that lot from a building. It won't look appropriate to our entrance into the community. And so from that standpoint, I just want our planner to realize that I understand why you're doing it on the planning side. And I agree with what your recommendation is, but I'm not going to support it on those grounds. I just wanted to make that comment. Anything else from the committee? Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. With the applicant bringing this forward, if now would be a good time if he had any type of idea as to what the projection or what the outlook of that place would look like, would be certainly beneficial in his position. But when you're just wanting to sever a lot with no type of idea as to what would be aesthetically pleasing in the area, that's a pretty tough ask.
Are you asking the applicant again to comment to that?
I am.
Okay, could we ask the Corey, could you speak to that again? I know you have, but we would ask you again.
Through you, your worship, to the counselor, I don't have much to add to what I initially said. The landowner and his partners have decided that this is the route they wanted to proceed with the vacant lot severance, and leave it up to the future landowners if they wanted to do a small commercial development or a residential infill development. I recognize the desire to have, an idea of what the proposed development would look like. But at this time, they're not looking to do any sort of the development themselves. They had this lot that had this large side yard that was sitting vacant that was able to sever off 55 feet of and create a was still a pretty generous size single detached lot by development standards of the day. So that's the direction they want to go. I hear the concerns with regards to the appearance of the proposed build or any future building here being compatible with the adjacent uses, and unsolicited advice is kind of through myself to council is urban design guidelines may be something that council might want to consider preparing as applications like this become more and more prevalent in rural environments that would speak to compatibility of adjacent land uses. But as Stephanie noted, at this time, those policies are in place, and it would be up to the building department and their review of any future permit application on what would be constructed here.
All right, thank you, Corey. That answers. Okay, any other comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
To Stephanie, just a quick, maybe just to clear some questions for myself. Am I correct in reading that this is the depth of this lot would be 45.88 feet? Am I reading that off that thing right? Meters, sorry, yes, meters. Anyways, by 17.64. So in estimated feet, I'm just saying it's roughly 160. I'm estimating big, but 60 by 150, give or take. Doing the math, that's about 9,000 square feet in the whole lot. Now going back to lot coverage, and I just curious, I think, is it 30% lot coverage is maximum?
So through the mayor to the councillor, that's kind of I can tell you the RC zone lot coverage, yes, is the 30%. Yep. But if there was a proposal for residential, that would vary depending on the R1, R2, or R3 zone. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I'm just kind of thinking a possibility, give or take, like no more than a 3,000 square foot building could be put on that lot? You know, if we're, well, rounding off in numbers. Yeah. So I just, it's just something there, like, I guess a house could, they don't know what's going on in there right now. And, and it could be sold, and it's just, I'm just trying to clear up some thoughts here in my mind as to what could fit in there, so. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? No other comments? We have a recommendation in front of us, and that is that application for consent B21, 2023, submitted under section 53 of the Planning Act, be granted, subject to the following conditions, which she has read out. We're looking for a mover.
I'd like to move the opposite, Your Worship.
Okay.
I'd like to move that at this time, the council opposes this application,
To reject the
to
application.
reject the application.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Keo. Discussion on that? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is carried, but it is 4-2 is the vote. All right. Our next application is a notice of public meeting to consider plan of subdivision 39 TNM 2201 and application ZBA 1-2023.
Your Worship, would it be out of order for me to make a comment before we move on?
I'm sorry,
Would it be out of order for me to make a comment before we move to the next?
pertaining to,
Our previous conversation?
go ahead.
I'd strongly suggest that we do consider urban design guidelines for our more historic neighborhoods in the North Middlesex community. I'm not sure exactly how we proceed at this time for that to occur, but I'm looking for some guidance because I think we do have a unique community here and we want to preserve the character of it.
So we could ask maybe for a staff report on that, and I think that would be the best way for us to go
Thank you.
forward. Councillor Irwin, if we can. All right. All right, and as I said, our next application will start it whenever. Do we have our applicant with us? They're coming in?
Hi, this is Caitlin Crowley.
Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. All right, so the purpose of this report is to provide council with preliminary information on an application for a plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment application. A recommendation will be given to council at a later meeting once the feedback from the public meeting and the agency circulation has been received and taken into consideration. So purpose of tonight's meeting is to hear from council, the public, and I will share with you some of the agency comments that has been received to date. More specifically, the purpose of the application for the plan of subdivision is to create 108 lots for single detached dwellings and currently 2 medium density blocks containing approximately 50 street facing townhouse units, 1 block for a future road connection, 1 for stormwater management, and 3 new public roads. And on the screen in front of you is the location map for context of the location of the lands within Park Hill, but I will move to the draft plan. There we go. It is now on the screen in front of you. So you can see the 108 single lots are proposed with the blocks along Dutchess Ave for future townhomes. And as mentioned, the applicant has submitted concurrently a rezoning application to rezone the lands from the future development zone to a site-specific R1 zone as well as R2 zone for the townhomes. And in addition to the applications that were submitted, the submission materials included and attached to the agenda for council's consideration include a planning justification report, a functional servicing report, preliminary stormwater management report, a traffic impact brief, a land use compatibility assessment, and an arborist report and tree preservation plan. And it is noted that this evening we are joined by the applicant as well as the agents as part of his team who would be able to answer some of the more technical questions on those documents. The planning report provided does have a high-level overview of relevant policies, but the detailed analysis will come at a later date. So this evening, I will focus on some of the comments received. So the notice was circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act. And we've received so far comments from the following agencies, and they are considered to be standard comments received for a plan of subdivision. So Hydro One provided comments, Bell Canada, Enbridge Gas, Canada Post. The Thames District Valley School Board noted no concerns or comments at the time. The chief building official had no concerns or comments at this time. The County of Middlesex Emergency Services provided comments specific to 911 addressing and street naming. The North Middlesex Public Works Department did provide some high-level comments in regards to water, roads, sanitary, sewers and servicing, as well as stormwater management and drainage. And the full extent of those comments have been provided as part of the planning report. And I should note, any comments that were received after the report has been finalized have also been attached separately, I believe, to the agenda. At the time of writing the subject report, we did receive 3 written submissions from the public. The concerns received were in regards to the proposed density, traffic, built form, green space, as well as infrastructure. And additionally, staff did receive a comment from the abutting industrial landowner who is Lafarge. And the comments provided were in regards to the submitted land use compatibility assessment. And so certainly staff and the applicant will be taking into consideration all that is heard this evening and all that has been received through the circulation process prior to, again, as mentioned, coming back to council with a recommendation. I would note, in addition to the public comments received through the circulation, on December the 1st, 2022, Zelenka Priamo, the agent on this file, did host a informal public open house where I would say fewer than 10 members of the community did attend, and similar concerns and questions were raised, including construction and phasing of the development, again, traffic impacts and calming measures, existing road standards, visitor parking, parkland, tree removal, zoning standards, and infrastructure capacity. So that being said, my recommendation, this evening is for council to accept the report for information purposes. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. At this time, I would ask the applicant remarks.
Yes, through you, your worship. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, staff, council, and members of the public who are in attendance here tonight. My name is Caitlin Crowley, planner with Zelenka Priamo, here as the agent on behalf of the ownership group for the applications before you. Also with me, I have Harry Frusios, principal planner with Zelenka Priamo, and Jeff Fung, an owner of the ownership, or a member of the ownership group. I would like to first thank Stephanie for her work on this file and continued communication with us. I would also like to thank the members of the public who registered to participate tonight and those who took the time to provide written comments. We were provided with all written comments in advance and hope to address as many as possible throughout the planning process. As shown in the evaluation report by staff, our proposal is located on a property within the Park Hill settlement boundary and a property which is intended for future residential use based on the residential area designation in the North Middlesex official plan. The proposed density of the development is lower than what is currently permitted. So we are currently proposing 17 units per hectare, whereas the maximum allowed is 25 units per hectare. The current draft plan proposes 108 single-family dwelling lots and 2 street townhouse blocks containing a total of 50 dwelling units. Now, based on new legislation since the application was submitted, we have been looking at potential minor revisions to the draft plan to better address affordability. However, these revisions won't necessarily alter the intent of the residential subdivision, nor will they alter the intent of the proposed zoning, but will only alter the potential number of townhouse blocks on Duchess Avenue and the configuration of the stormwater management block. Given that the current future development zone does not permit single detached dwellings or townhouses, but is rather a zone which permits future development subject to a zoning bylaw amendment, clearly, the application before you is a zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone portions of the subject lands, as Stephanie noted, to permit various components of the development. So as she noted, a different zone will be needed to permit the different sized single family lots, as well as the townhouses and the stormwater management block. The appropriate zones and associated exceptions will be determined through further discussions with planning staff. Again, as Stephanie noted as well, we did host a virtual open house, and we did find this very helpful for the consulting team and development team to gain feedback and work with neighbors and attempt to address any questions or concerns that they had based on their initial look of the draft plan of subdivision. The proposed development will provide for the necessary infrastructure, including a future sanitary solution, public sidewalks, properly sized public right-of-ways, and standard subdivision components, such as postal, which we will coordinate through Canada Post, as well as garbage and snow storage, et cetera. Parking for the site is to be provided via individual single and double loaded driveways, and the proposed internal streets will also be adequately sized for street parking. The proposed development is also to be on full municipal services with no septic required. In terms of the perceived impact regarding the Lafarge facility to the north, which Stephanie noted and which was provided to you via written comments, we have been attempting to gain all of the information we can regarding the operation of the facility and working with Lafarge to try and provide a comprehensive land use compatibility report. We had reached out to them prior to preparing the compatibility report, however, did not receive meaningful responses on their operation. So we have read their comments and recommendations as provided to council, and we can agree to their recommendations pending more information about their operation in order to provide for standard mitigation practices for a Class 2 facility. We don't anticipate any mitigation issues to come out of this, but we do need more information in order to finalize that. With intensification projects such as this, there's often perceived concerns with new residential development on vacant lands. However, the proposed development does seek to provide a mix of attainable housing forms between compact single-family lots varying in frontage widths, in addition to townhouse forms of residential development, which isn't necessarily widely available and can often be more affordable than the standard single-family lots you see today. Low density, low form residential is the intended use of the property as per the North Middlesex official plan. And we have proposed a draft plan which provides for this as well as connectivity to the broader neighborhood. We look forward to working through some of the more finite details with planning and engineering staff as well. And we thank you for your time and consideration this evening. Our team is here tonight to answer any technical questions that the public or council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. At this time, comments from the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? I'll ask once again, go ahead. If you'd come up, please, to the desk and give your name.
I'm Lorna Harris. My husband Greg and I live on Duke Street. And we did attend the meeting in December, which was a very, I thought, very productive and very informative meeting. I have a couple of concerns. Recently, the government of Ontario changed the law around the payment of development fees. And my understanding is that up until very recently, the developer was to pay for the development fees for the things like the undergirding infrastructure, like the water, the sewer, and so on. But now, if there are a certain number of affordable housing units in a development, the municipality pays. And I'm wondering, and that of course means the taxpayers of this municipality. So I'm wondering what the plans are. I heard the words affordable housing, and I have no objection to affordable housing. However, I am just wondering to what degree the taxpayers of our area will be bearing the costs of the development. So that was one concern. Another concern was traffic. And we do live on a very quiet street, there's no doubt about it. You know, so I have to be a little bit realistic. But out of that subdivision, there will be 1,414 trips per day in and out. And the traffic report is very interesting on that. It breaks it down to weekdays, Saturdays, and so on. It turns out that the developer, I believe, owns a 3-acre parcel which opens out onto Elliott Drive. And right now on the plan, there's a little cul-de-sac at like the south of the plan or the bottom of that first picture. I don't see why there couldn't be a road, and it's intended, I believe, for a future right-of-way. I don't know why we can't have a road which would come up from Elliott Drive to the end of Duchess. And that would alleviate, 85 cars a day going along Duke Street. So that's basically my second point. My third point is that I heard at the meeting on December 1st that, this is my third and final, that while the subdivision can be linked up, it seems quite adequately to the existing and perhaps proposed pipes. We heard that they need in Park Hill to have a new sewage treatment plant to handle everything. And without that, we're in, I hate to use the expression, but we're in doo-doo. So I'm wondering, what are the plans for the sewage treatment plant if we need one? What are the plans for it? And what effect does that have on the planning for the 158 pieces of construction? I do have to say, just to conclude my remarks, that I'm all in favor of subdivisions here. We need people to move here for the economy of the town. I want to see the high school kept open. We need new people so that we can get the kids to go to school here. But there are things that, as a local resident, I am concerned about it. And I do think there could be a solution to the traffic problem in terms of making use of that 3-acre parcel. Anyway, I'll leave it with you, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Actually, they're great comments. Let's start with the first question was on the development fees and the impact. Stephanie, if you could speak to that.
Through the mayor, there have been several changes through Bill 23, and changes to the Development Charges Act have been among them. I don't have an answer for you this evening in regards to that specific question. I would say generally development does pay for development, but certainly I noted that question, and I will look into that and provide a response with my recommendation report that's coming forward.
Thanks, Stephanie. Look forward to that. We do know there is going to be an impact of some kind on us. We just don't know the extent right now. I would ask the applicant, I think, for the comment on the traffic and on that other route to Elliott.
Through you, your worship. Yes, it is. There is an existing right of way that extends Dutchess Avenue down to Elliott Drive. In the future, we anticipate that to be developed as a public right of way. But for the purpose of this subdivision, we had intended to develop Dutchess Avenue to the extent of our property so that it could provide that future connection.
Okay, thank you. The last comment you made was on the wastewater treatment plant. I think I can speak. I'll start with, and if somebody wants to chime in, that's fine. We are doing the engineering on a wastewater treatment plant. It is close to being completed. 90%, I think, is where they're at. And yes, Park Hill at some point will need a wastewater treatment plant. I will tell you that we are looking at every avenue we can find to assist us in solutions. And the next meeting, you may have one idea come forward to the next meeting, but we are looking at different solutions. But the reality is at some point, Park Hill will have to have a wastewater treatment plant. So that is, whether this development happens or not, we will have to do one. So is there any other comments from the public? Did anybody want to add anything to my comments on the wastewater treatment? Jaden, I'll let, and then John, I'll come to you. Go ahead, Jaden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, it may be helpful if I just read one of the comments we provided on this application with respect to wastewater treatment capacity. So there's currently limited wastewater treatment capacity at the Park Hill Lagoons. The remaining wastewater treatment capacity is inadequate to serve the full build out of all the proposed developments coming forward at this time into the near future. Therefore, it's expected that each new proposed development will need to be reviewed in detail on a case-by-case basis to confirm whether there is adequate wastewater treatment capacity available to be reserved or allocated. It's noted that wastewater treatment capacity is currently formally allocated through execution of the subdivision agreement. And at this time, the municipality makes no guarantee that wastewater treatment capacity will be available for this development.
Okay, thank you. We had another comment. Go ahead and please give your name when you come forward.
John Johnson. Yes, I take the other lady's opinion too, concerns about what it can do to that neighborhood. My mother lives in that street and so does my brother. It might make a lot of traffic, but I really would like to see something go ahead and not get squashed. You know, people just going, oh, Park Hill can't grow. I've lived in this town almost all my life, which is 60 plus years, gone away, came back, and I've seen all of King Street die. I've seen high school threaten to be closed 2 to 3 times. We need some more development. So again, I hope it won't be all burdened on the taxpayers, which I live in Park Hill, so I'd be one of them, but I'd like to see something happen with that lot and not make so many rules that the developer walks away. So that's about it.
Thanks, John. Any other comments from the public at this time? Come forward.
Tara Schramm. My only question is in regards to the townhouses, will they be rentals or they be purchased? Like, I'm just looking at roughly where we're looking at what's coming into the neighborhood as a neighbor. You know, I don't want me to be living in the slums, basically. You know, I know we're trying to bring in a nice subdivision, but I want to know where we're going to be at when you say affordable housing and what we're going to be bringing in to the community.
Okay, I'll ask the applicant to answer that, whether they're rentals or for sale.
Yes, through you, your worship, the tenure of the buildings hasn't been confirmed at this stage. The market will kind of determine that. But you know, whether they're rentals or condos, I don't think will make a huge difference on the proposal itself. But at this time, the tenure has not been determined. And sorry, the term affordable housing, it is going to be more affordable than existing development, but not necessarily the term as defined in the Planning Act as affordable housing. If that, I'm not sure if that clarifies anything, but.
Okay, I just asked that question because we have enough of that around this area as it is now that come from the city that are, unfortunately, we just happen to be cheaper rent than the city. So they're coming out here, but they don't actually have jobs, some of them. So you know what I mean? Like I just don't want it to be that we're going to be the next slums in the back corner.
I don't think that's the case. Taryn, if I could just make a comment here. I was at a meeting yesterday where we had a report on affordable housing. And the numbers they came up with yesterday for affordable housing was rent under $1,039 a month and purchasing of houses of under $572,000. I don't know how $500,000 became an affordable house, but that's the term they're using for affordable housing. So it's not exactly a slum for
I know,
sure.
that's one of my concerns.
Okay, no,
Okay,
legitimate.
thank you.
Council, if I
Just a
may.
minute. Any other comments from the public at this time? No other comments?
Sorry,
Okay, we
Council.
will to council. Councillor Canelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. For Tara's benefit, affordable housing is not rent geared to income. There is a distinct difference. I have a question for Caitlin, and that is on the, you mentioned something about Lafarge, and which is an industry that a number of people who are employed there that live in Park Hill and the surrounding area. What are your concerns with that industry? I understand you've had some concerns there. What specifically are they? What do you hope to see them do to mitigate those concerns?
Through your worship, it wasn't necessarily concerns that we had, but it was, they had provided written comments stating that they would like a peer review of our land use compatibility report. And we are fine to provide that peer review. However, when we initially wrote that report, we had reached out to Lafarge just in terms of their operations so that we could better address it in our land use compatibility report. Those were not provided at the time. So we were just looking to work with them so that we could provide proper mitigation measures, just in terms of noise and air quality. It wasn't necessarily a concern with their operation, just we needed more confirmation on different measurements that they had.
So when you talk about air quality, as you know, the concrete, they prepare ready mixed concrete there, which does create a lot of dust. Is that an issue that you're concerned about? Would you be looking at that organization to do something to mitigate that dust?
Yeah, we'd be doing standard subdivision mitigation measures, such as clauses in the like within the subdivision, as well as air conditioning to mitigate air quality issues as well. Like, having air conditionings on each building so that people don't have to open their windows as much. Which are standard mitigation members within a subdivision close to a industrial facility. But I'm going to defer to Harry as well here, just to better address that comment as well.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Harry Frusios. I'm a colleague of Caitlin's, and I just wanted to add something about Lafarge and speaking with our noise consultant yesterday. They would like to get some more information from Lafarge in terms of their operations, so that we have some better guidance in terms of what we need to do to mitigate on our end. And as Caitlin noted, I mean, at minimum, it's going to require likely air-conditioned units to make sure windows stay closed at certain times of the day to avoid the emissions from air quality, things like that. But that's what we're working towards. And we've been told by our consultant that they don't necessarily see any issues. It's just making sure we have as much information as possible to make sure the proper mitigation is provided on our site, and if necessary on Lafarge as well. But that's something we would have to engage with them and their consultants to see what anything beyond what we've already recommended would be required. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions from council? Councillor Irwin?
Yeah, there's just a confirmation question here for the public. The recommendation tonight is this report be received for information. What would be the next step, and when could we anticipate that if approved?
So through the mayor to the councillor, from my experience, the next step would be myself and the agent here and the applicant would evaluate all the information that has been collected. And from the municipality's perspective, staff would evaluate whether or not there are items to be addressed prior to being in a position to recommend provide a recommendation for council for their consideration. So certainly Lafarge is an issue that has been identified that certainly comes top of mind that we would like to get sorted out. And I'm sure Caitlin and Harry are in agreement with that. That's something to look at. There may be tweaks that come out from the applicant once they hear from the public. So there is generally a few months between tonight's information meeting and the recommendation meeting. That's generally the timeline and next steps.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Daigle, do you have a question?
Yeah, to deal with the Lafarge issue, when I first read the report, I never saw Lafarge mentioned when all the other businesses were talked about. I just would not like to see something that's going to proceed, that's going to then turn around and cause Lafarge to pack up and leave. If we get 50 homes in that area of influence, shall we say, or 100 homes, whatever it's going to be, then that's a lot of people to go against Lafarge to say, well, now you've got to put up barriers. You've got, it's just, we got to look at both sides. We got a good employer in town. We got to keep that employer and protect it. He was there first.
So we're looking forward to hear what they come up with for mitigation, right? Okay. Go ahead.
And further, we're taking this as information only.
Great.
As I recall, we had one just recently for information only down the street on the corner. And we've got a third one coming for information only. Are we getting these people are they lining up to go for the sewage allotment? Whoever can cross the goal line first?
Through the mayor, we are in discussions. We have had meetings with the development community to decide how we proceed with the sewage allotment. We are also looking at implementing processes or procedures for the municipality to look at how we divvy out that remaining allotment in a way that's equitable, that allows development to happen in an orderly fashion.
Okay. Any other questions, Council? Seeing none, I do have one question, and that is on the townhouse side. Is that one solid row of townhouses, or is there gaps in there, or? If you could just answer that, you know, on the side, I mean, where you have, I think it's 50 townhouses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, your worship. There are townhouse blocks. So there's blocks of between 8, 6, and 4 units. And then they will have spaces between those blocks.
Okay, thank you. I just, I even had a conversation with a resident today about Sarnia, what happened there. And I was thinking if that's one solid block, that's a lot of, if there was ever fire, thank you. So 4, 6, and 8.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Differing sizes.
Yeah, there sure is. Any other questions from? No other questions. We do have a recommendation to receive this for information. Moved by Councillor Keough, seconded by Councillor Knellison. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Stephanie. Our third one is a notice of public meeting to consider official plan amendment number 14. It's a general amendment to the official plan. And this is more of a housekeeping.
Through the mayor, we actually have Abby Heddle joining us this evening from the county. She's joining us virtually. She's just popping on right now to provide her policy report.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Not very well.
Not very well? Can you
There
hear
we
me?
can, yes.
Okay,
Yes, you're good.
perfect.
Good to go.
So the purpose of this report is to provide council with a recommendation in regards to a housekeeping amendment to update the municipality's official plan to implement up-to-date policies as a result of recent legislative changes. The effect of this housekeeping amendment is to implement and update complete application requirements for applications for site plan approval. Further, this housekeeping amendment would provide policy direction to allow council to delegate the passing of minor zoning bylaw amendments to a municipal committee, officer, employee, agent, and provide policy direction as it relates to requests for the cancellation of a certificate of consent. These amendments are a result of recent updates to the Planning Act through Bill 13, the Supporting People and Supporting Businesses Act, Bill 276, Supporting Recovery and Competitiveness Act, and Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act. So Bill 109 made several legislative changes to the Planning Act, which focus on streamlining the municipal decision-making process, including imposing the requirement starting January 1st, 2023, to refund certain planning application fees where decision timelines are not achieved. For council's information, in a letter to municipalities dated December 22nd, 2022, from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister Clark did advise that he intends to introduce legislation that would push the requirement for fee refunds from January 1st to July 1st, 2023. We haven't seen anything on that yet, but there could be more to come. A significant change within Bill 109 is how site plan control is implemented. Municipal councils were required to delegate site plan control decisions to staff for all applications received on or after July 1st, 2022. The site plan application decision-making timeline as of January 1st, 2023 has been extended from 30 days to 60 days. An applicant can appeal a municipality's failure to approve their site plan application to the OLT beginning 60 days after the application was deemed complete. So the Planning Act now provides for the inclusion of complete application requirements within official plans for site plan applications, similar to current complete application requirements for other types of applications that are made under the Planning Act. An owner has recourse if the municipality fails to deem an application for site plan approval complete within 30 days of it being submitted, unless the official plan contains prescribed information and material that could be required as part of a complete application for site plan approval. And this essentially provides the municipality the opportunity to pause the clock, so to speak, in the absence of any required materials. The basic provisions of complete application requirements for site plans are included in Section 41 of the Planning Act, as outlined in my report. However, for the majority of site plan applications, municipalities will require additional information and reports and studies. So given that the municipality's official plan currently contains policy direction as it relates to complete applications for site plan approval, staff are recommending an additional policy that provides for the municipality to require a peer review where applicable as part of a complete application. Additionally, the policy provides that where other planning approvals are required to facilitate a development, site plan applications will not be deemed complete until such time that those planning approvals are in force and effect. This will ensure that the municipality is able to front end the majority of the work for site plan applications prior to deeming the application complete, which is intended to facilitate a timely decision and avoid the potential of having to refund applicants in the absence of a decision. In addition to the legislative changes that were implemented through Bill 109, Bill 13 and Bill 276 made minor amendments to the Planning Act. More specifically, Schedule 19 of Bill 13 amended the Planning Act to include provisions that enables council to, by bylaw, delegate the authority to pass bylaws under Section 34 of the Planning Act, which are zoning bylaws, that are minor in nature, to a committee of council or an individual who is an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality. So these bylaws include the removing of holding symbols and the passing of temporary use bylaws. In order for council to delegate the authority to pass bylaws on these matters, the Act requires that the official plan provide policies to specify the types of bylaws that may be delegated. It should also be noted that the delegation of this authority is completely discretionary and would require council to pass a subsequent bylaw to delegate the approval authority to staff. Further, Schedule 24 of Bill 276 amended the Planning Act to, among other matters, allow for the cancellation of a certificate of consent And again, while it is not a requirement of the Act, the addition of a policy that outlines requirements to cancel a consent would assist staff in the evaluation of requests to do so. So in all, the purpose of this amendment is to implement the provisions of the Planning Act associated with Bill 109, Bill 13, and Bill 276 within the Municipality of North Middlesex's official plan. The proposed amendment includes policy direction related to complete applications for site plans, as well as the necessary implementation policies for council to delegate the authority to pass minor bylaws under section 34, as well as policies to assist staff in the evaluation of requests to cancel a certificate of consent. Overall, this amendment will conform to recent changes to the Planning Act and provide clarity as it relates to complete applications, the delegation of authority to pass minor bylaws under section 34, and the evaluation of requests to cancel a certificate of consent, which will ultimately improve the development application processes by the municipality. So in terms of agency comments received, Bell Canada submitted a standard response, which is outlined in my report. And in terms of public comments, none were received prior to the preparation of my report. So based on the foregoing, it is my recommendation, Your Honor, that official plan amendment number 14 to implement policies as a result of legislative changes to the Planning Act be adopted and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, any comments from the public on this application? Seeing none, questions from council? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. My question has to do with the site plan approval when an application is deemed complete. A number of applications will require input from the Sauville Bayfield Conservation Authority here and in other municipalities as well. That can sometimes be quite lengthy in duration before that approval is granted. Will this policy or these recommendations that you're recommending we adopt, these policies, will that impact on that process for the site plan approval completion with the Sauville Bayfield or any conservation authority?
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor. So the intent of these policies is to allow for staff to front end the majority of the work for site plan applications. So generally that would include any comments or conditions that are required by the CAs. So I'm not sure if that answers your question at all. Stephanie might be able to provide some more information in that regard as well.
Through the mayor, I guess additionally, I just at a high level, Bill 23 also made some changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, which impact the relationship between municipalities and the conservation authorities. So that may play into the involvement of conservation authorities moving forward with any planning application file. But in regards to this amendment specifically, there are no timelines or, I guess, policies being imposed at this time that would require speeding up the process, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I know with interest, though, that under agency comments, the Conservation Authority was not included, and that kind of piqued my interest.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Irwin.
We talked about bylaws that are minor in nature. Can you give us some examples of what they may be?
Thank you. And through the mayor to you, councillor. So a temporary use bylaw to establish a garden suite would be considered minor in nature. So essentially we use temporary use bylaws to permit a use for a specified time period. And they come with an expiration date. Oftentimes with garden suites, we have to extend that deadline as well. So that would be included under this minor delegation.
Okay,
Yeah. That's one example. Are there any others, or are we speaking specifically about garden suites? I mean, I'm curious the extent of this authority. What else would be a minor consideration?
So another minor consideration would be the removal of a holding symbol to facilitate a development, for example. So a lot of the times municipalities will utilize holding to ensure matters related to servicing or anything like that are adhered to and are addressed. And then the removal of the holding will allow for a development to be facilitated.
okay, Bill. I know that remains to be seen a little bit, and I'm not sure about that one either. But that's another piece of legislation that's come out. Stephanie, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, through the mayor, if I can add. So the proposed changes in regards to the delegation of authority, as Abby mentioned, does not, as of right, allow the delegation to occur. It does still require a subsequent bylaw to be considered by council that could speak to one of the proposed minor changes, both of them. So there is further opportunity for input. The municipality just does not have the ability to explore that option without having these policies in the official plan to even have the option to look at that.
Okay.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the answers. I guess my definition of minor might be different than others. Yes.
Right. Right. Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing none, we have a recommendation which Abby has spelled out. What is your wish? Moved by Councillor Canelson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Abby. Thank you, Stephanie. Our next, we need a motion to go out of committee of adjustment and public meeting and adjourn to our regular meeting. Councillor Keel, Councillor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is the budget presentation from the treasurer, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I will please be allowed to share my screen at this point, I cannot. As long as you aim for the computer, not for me.
Here we go.
I just wanted to say, if everyone could check their iPads in settings to make sure under sounds, your volume is turned right down. Just to see if the iPads are creating the feedback. So that's settings, sound, and then turn the volume down.
Yeah, because we haven't had this echo problem. We did that one night. It's been better. It is make it hard to understand, doesn't it? Because you're hearing, it does make it hard to understand with that echo. Try that. No, it's still got that echo. Okay, are we all set? All set? Okay, go ahead, Estelle.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight is the big night that we are proposing our 2023 budget. Before we get started, there is a few things I would like to mention. The first one is due to the fact that this is a new council term and the timing of the advisory committees being named, the members being named to the committees, there is no budget committee, advisory committee this year. So the presentation that you're seeing tonight is the first time that members of council are seeing the proposed 2023 budget. Tonight's presentation is a presentation only. It is not deliberations. We are not going to be discussing the specific line items and dollar amounts. If you want, those meetings will be held in the early part of February. So tonight is basically, as Councillor Daigle doesn't really like, for information purposes only. First, I would like to thank staff. The budgeting process is a long process that requires a lot of input from municipal staff. Without their participation and input and long discussions, and I know at times they probably thought I was very demanding of their time and answers, I do really want to thank them for their input and participation. The budget process, the way we've come to these numbers, we've basically, our starting point was the 2022 budget, and department heads reviewed their budgets and sent me their required wish list, if you want. And together we had discussions. We've looked at, you know, the trending for the past 3 years in regards to the dollar value, what they wanted, their justification. And once all of budget was put together, we are now ready to present it to members of council. For the returning members, you will notice that your budget has a new look. For the new members of council, let me just go over a little bit in your budget, in your binder. You will see that for every single page of your operating budget, there is a corresponding facing yellow page. What the yellow page indicates is on the page that faces the yellow page, it outlines the lines that have a change from the 2022 budget, whether it's an increase to the budget line, a decrease to the budget line, a new account, and the justification for the change. So this should be helpful for you when you are reviewing your binder in regards to a certain line item has gone up by $8,000. Why? You will have that information on the corresponding yellow page. All right, I think that's it for my introduction. So the agenda for tonight, we will first have a look at the operating budget for all departments: administration and finance, protection services, operations, waste drains, community services, and water wastewater. Then we will have a look at the 2023 proposed capital budget. We will have a short discussion on the long-range capital forecast, and then we will discuss our recommendations moving forward. So what has guided us in the preparation of the budget? Staff has done a comprehensive review and a trend analysis. As I've spoken to a little bit earlier, we have done a 3-year trending analysis for each line item within your budget to look at what has been happening in the past 3 years. Now, we do realize that 2020 being a COVID year, the numbers are pretty much skewed for that year. So we did not use the 2020 numbers in our 3-year analysis. We used 2018, 2019, and 2021. And then we looked at our 2022 actuals for comparison. We've also looked at supporting studies and informed data in preparing our budget. Examples of that, those supporting studies and data are the water wastewater rate study, the OPP billing statement for 2023, the blue water recycling budget for 2023, ABCA budget, as well as AQUA budgets for 2023. So those have all provided information in regards to our proposed budget. We've also looked at our neighboring municipalities and done comparison, mostly in regards to their approved and or proposed tax rate increase, as well as their approved and or proposed COLA increases for their staff. And here we go with the operating budget. OMPF, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. From years, what you see on screen is a comparison of what we have received for every year starting in 2018. It has consistently gone down. From 2022 to 2023, it went from 842,400 to 720,300, which is a reduction of 15%. Those numbers are provided by the province. There is nothing we can do about it. Oops, oh darn. Okay, so in regards to the COLA increase, in 2022, our collective agreement was up for renegotiation. And what we've done is in those negotiations, there was for 2023 a union member COLA increase equal to 2.7%. In the past years, in regards to the non-unionized staff members, the COLA increases were basically based on the inflation rate. We all know that the current inflation rate year over year right now is very high. We are not proposing a COLA increase for our non-union staff equivalent to the inflation rate, but equivalent to our negotiated collective agreement, which would be 2.7%. Our neighboring municipalities, I've asked, and we have 5 rates that have returned to us. So Adelaide Metcalfe have an approval COLA increase of 3%, Middlesex Centre of 2.5%, Lucan Badolf of 4%, Thames Centre at 1.95%, and Strathroy Caradoc at 2.5%. Out of all of those, they are all approved except for Strathroy Caradoc, which is a proposed COLA increase of 2.5. That one has yet to be approved. Across the board, our municipal insurance premium has gone up by 14%. If you remember from past years, that as well is consistently going up. Last year, we had a premium increase of 12%. This year is 14%. We have a little bit of good news, however, is that we are one of very few municipalities who have been approved for cyber insurance. So we are covered in case of a cyber attack. And also our 2022 premium for cyber coverage was $14,400 for the year. This year, with double the liability coverage, our premium is at $8,900. So our premium has gone down and we've been approved. So that's good news all around in regards to cyber insurance. When you look at your binder, you will notice that some of the line items that talk to transfers to and from reserves have an amount in there and there is no amount for 2023. That is because that has been included in our what we call Fund 2. So municipal accounting is fund accounting and our capital projects are all listed under Fund 2. The municipal project is all under Fund 1. So the transfers to and from reserve have been included in our capital projects. Moving on to the admin and finance department. So now I'm just going to go over some highlights, not all highlights, for each specific department, but the ones that I felt were of more importance to bring to your attention when you are reviewing your binder. So for the Admin and Finance Department, you will notice that our conference and convention budget. Oh, sorry, I skipped a slide. Our education and training has increased. And this is not for Admin and Finance, this is for council. So our education and training, as well as our clothing allowance, have been increased. And that is because it is a new term of council. The clothing allowance is to cover for those nice jackets that you are all wearing tonight. And the education and training, you will be participating in quite a few training sessions. So we've increased the education and training budget for council members. Conference and convention budget. This is basically for all departments across the board. During COVID, conferences have basically been canceled. So we are now increasing the budgets for conference and convention for participation to resume for our staff as well as council members following the COVID hiatus. For the fire department budget, you will notice a new line item for transfer to Lambton Shores. You will remember recently the fire chief did bring a report to council in regards to having Lambton Shores cover a portion of our area within the municipality. This report has been brought to fire committee last week. And it has been brought to my attention that fire committee will recommend adding a $10,000 budget amount for this service that we would be receiving from Lambton Shores. That is yet, I realize that has yet come to council, but I thought I would include it in the budget. And if it does not get approved, then it will just not going to happen. Again, the conference and convention budget has increased to resume participation following COVID hiatus. In the fire department, there is also a new line called cell phone allowance with a $2,500 budget. And this is for our volunteer firefighters currently use their personal cell phones and have downloaded an app called Who's Responding. And that allows our fire department easier way of communicating with them when they are being called on for a fire. So we thought because they are using their personal cell phones, it would be an allowance of a yearly allowance minimal of $25 or $50 for them agreeing to use their personal cell phones to sign up with this app. Again, with the fire department, there has been a new account for uniforms in order to segregate the purchase of the volunteer firefighters' dress uniforms and station wear. Previously, it was included in the non-capital purchases for the fire department. Council members have requested to see that separate in their own account. So they can see how much is being spent for volunteer firefighter uniforms. There's also a new department within Protective Services that I'm calling the Emergency Management Department. We've recently had an exercise in regards to emergency management and what our municipal obligations are. So that has brought to light that we really are not well equipped in case of an emergency. So in that department, we've included a budget in order to set up our emergency operations center and for conferences for the individuals to attend to help them in their preparedness for an emergency. Our policing, according to the 2023 billing statement from the OPP, we've actually gone down our cost by the cost has gone down by $68,977. Under the building permits, we've added just a little tiny amount for our administration salary. We have one of our admin staff works very well with, or is the contact person between the Middlesex Center Building Department and our residents, and her time was never allocated to that department. So we've added a line item to correct that. Under the license line for building permits, we've included the cost for Cloud Permit, which is a new software that Middlesex Center uses, and we use it as well. And I believe it's $12,000 license for the year. Bylaw enforcement, contracted services has increased, and that is due to our new bylaw enforcement company that we are using, which is Tenet Security. Okay, under the operations department, I have looked at the salaries that have been allocated to each specific section within the operations department, and I've done a percentage of the previous 4 years. So you will notice that some of the departments have a little bit higher salary allocated to them, but others are lower. Bottom line though, for all departments within the operation, the difference is the COLA increase. Again, the increase to education and training for our public works individuals. We have 5 individuals who have been scheduled to attend the road school training courses, where they will learn all about how to deal with clearing and fixing of roads and asphalt and all that fun information. Again, during COVID times, training and education did not happen a lot. So we are getting back into it. So you will see an increase in the education and training line. The telephone line under operations has seen a substantial increase, and that is to supply all of our public works operators with a municipally owned cell phone. And the reason for that is we now work with Citywide. So we assign work orders through Citywide. And for better efficiency, if our operators have access to the work orders while they're on the road, then they don't need to come back to the shop to get their next assignment and go back out. They will all see that within Citywide work orders. Under materials, we've recently had the request, and we've installed banners on the Elsa Craig light standards for the Legion. That has brought to the front the fact that our existing brackets on the streetlights are in very poor shape. So you will see a $7,500 increase to the materials line in order to replace the existing brackets, not the new ones that we've just installed, but what was on there before. Small tool purchases, there is a $10,000 increase to that line item to better equip the McGillivray shop with small tools. That doesn't include measuring tapes and hammers. It's more for small power tools. He's mentioned jacks to raise vehicles and just to better equip them to do their job. has not been a priority in the recent past, and they do need to better equip the shop. Under contracted services, again for operations, for IT, as recent as last year, you all had seen the improvements made to the McGillivray shop in regards to the office area upstairs. This IT increase is to outfit the office area upstairs with proper connectivity, so they can actually work on the network from the shop. And we've received a quote. This work will all be done by county IT. Under bridge maintenance, for contracted services as well as materials, there is an increase as well, and that is for our bridge inspections. It is legislated that we should be inspecting our bridges biannually, and that hasn't been done for a while. So we've increased the budget in order to inspect all of our bridges. And under materials, it's not a lot. And we do realize that if a major issue comes about with one of our bridges, it's going to cost a lot more than what we've put into materials, but that would come later on as a capital project the following year. Under hardtop patching, there is an increase to materials as well as contracted services, and that is just in order for our public works guys to catch up on work needed due to poor asphalt conditions within the municipality. Under dust layer, this is where you will probably see the biggest increase in the budget line item. It has increased by more than $300,000. And the reason for that is, and the wording that I got from our public works manager is because that is the true cost for proper calcium work on gravel roads. Right now, the material that is being used, they will lay the material and 3 days later it will be a dust fall again. It is not very effective on our gravel roads. So our public works manager is working to use a different product, is looking to use a different product next year, which will also help and should help with the need to re-gravel the roads every year, because the solution, the product will keep the gravel more compacted for a longer period of time. So that is where you will see a very substantial difference. Having said that, we have reduced the proposed rolling road rehab capital project by the corresponding $300,000. So really, we've shifted those funds from a capital project to re-gravel all the roads to a better maintenance program for our dust. Under road signs and safety devices, there is an increase to contracted services, and that is to hire a retroreflectivity contractor to ensure that our signs are still visible at night, that they still reflect what they need to reflect, so that they are visible to all of our residents who are driving the roads at night. And this is to be compliant with minimum maintenance standards. We've also included an additional 2 speed signs in that line. Under road patrol, we've increased the contracted services to include a weather forecast service from Ontario Good Roads. Again, that is for our public works individuals to prove due diligence in regards to forecast and road clearing during the winter. So my question to our public works manager was that, okay, we all have access to the weather network, but this is a service from Ontario Good Words that will keep track of how often you go and look at the forecast. Right now, the current process is they look at the weather forecast, the weather report, they print it, they put holes in it, they put it in a binder, and they do that 4 or 5 times a day, just so they keep it on hand. But what happens if they forget to print it and put it in the binder? This is just to help them prove due diligence. In regards to our waste department, the user fees and charges bylaw that was brought to council at the end of December included an increase to the cost of our small, medium, and large bin. So the small went from 95 to 100, the medium from 150 to 160, the large from 210 to 225. So these are minimal amounts that we are hoping will help us cover the costs for our waste department. Under the engineering costs, again for the waste department, there is an increase because of a report that we need to have done by engineers in regards to our landfill closure and post-closure costs. This is mandated. I'm surprised that our auditors have not come down hard on us, but this is going to, it's in the works for 2023. Our garbage and recycling contracts with Blue Water Recycling have also slightly increased in 2023, and you will see that dollar value in your binder. Moving on to cemeteries. For our closed cemeteries, North Middlesex is in the process of assuming the operation of 2 cemeteries that have been closed. One of them is McTaggart and the other one is Ebenezer. We actually received an email today that the transfer is now complete for McTaggart. So that's in the works. So you will see that we have increased our legal fees for possible survey and acquisition of easements and potentially property for landlocked closed cemeteries. And for Ebenezer Cemetery, again, an increase to legal fees for a court-created deed because there is no existing deed for that cemetery. For community services, the standard conferences and convention line item has been increased, as well as the education and training. The education and training, we have 5 operators that the manager is wanting them to follow a ORFA training session. Again, training has been put on hold due to COVID, and we are resuming it. I'm not going to speak to conferences and conventions again. Park Hill Arena, building repairs and maintenance line has an increase to it due to the planning for the reframing of the lobby between the ice surface and the lobby. Apparently, there's quite a gap there and the cold air keeps coming into the lobby, therefore affecting the ice surface. So reframing that wall should help in that situation. The Leisure Club, you will notice an increase to building repairs and maintenance for the purchase and installation of 4 windows, one of them being 1 large viewing window. So there's an increase in the budget item for that as well. Ye Old Town Hall, there needs to be some brick repointing to the building. Therefore, you will see an increase in the budget as well. Under economic development, conferences and convention, but we've also created a new account for community building events and local business workshops. So with the arrival of our new economic development coordinator, she is planning on hosting some different types of workshop for local businesses. And this is to cover the cost of coffee and snacks and other material that she may need during those workshops. And for the community building events, that's the movies under the stars, the popcorn, the face painting, all of that community building for our economic development department. You'll also notice under contracted services for economic development has an increase, and that is for our app. We've presented to you the app in a recent meeting, and the annual maintenance for that app, I believe, is $2,500 per year. Water, wastewater. So in 2022, you will remember that we developed a new consumption category. So prior to that, in 2021, when there was a substantial rate increase, the consumption categories started at 0 to 250 cubic meters per household. So it's based on the past 3-year average consumption. Last year at budget time, we made the change to include or replace the first category to be 0 to 50 cubic meters to allow for individuals who are living by themselves. So, an individual on a fixed income living by himself or herself will not consume 250 cubic meters of water throughout the year, when the average for a family, the average consumption is 180 cubic meters. So we created the 0 to 50 cubic meters category last year with a commitment to review if that was the correct number or not. So we've done that review. So what we've determined is in the 0 to 50 cubic meter category, we had 81 business accounts, which really threw us for a loop because we hadn't considered that. Those are just businesses who are basically using the washroom to wash their hand Monday to Friday during business hours, and that's it. So they would fall within the 50 cubic meter consumption category for the year. We only reached 198 residents with the 0 to 50 cubic meter category. So looking at doing the same analysis for the 0 to 75 cubic meter category, we now have only 21 more business accounts, but we have a substantial increase in our residents falling within that category. So we are recommending at this point for 2023 to remove the 0 to 50 cubic meter category and replace it with the 0 to 75.
Can I just make a comment to that? If I can, I'll just make a comment. And John, you'll remember, and Adrian, remember, when we changed that 0 to 50, we said, is that the right number? And we were really we thought that we knew that that was kind of to the low end of the number, but we did Estelle just kept going sort of to 55 to 60 and it did appear that really brought in 75 seems to bring in our lower users and includes more people who were just missing out. And that seems to be a better number. Just to comment to that. And while we're doing this, any questions you have while you're going through the binder, I would suggest email or text Estelle on them. Doesn't mean you can't ask them when we have our meetings, but just so that the answers are there for you when you ask the question. So just Go ahead, Adrian.
The only question I have, thank you, Mayor, is like, I could certainly send my questions to Estelle, but would it be better perhaps to send it to the department head if I have a question in that particular area?
No, I would think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through your worship, what my plan was to discuss this at the end of the presentation and to inform you that all questions that I receive, I will put all of the answers together in an email if Councillor Cornelison sends me 5 questions. And Councillor Keough sounds me 10 or vice versa, you know. I will compile all of the questions and answers and send them to all of council. That way, everybody is on the same page for all of the questions.
Good idea. Thank you.
Other comment I just have is all these departments are going to be here, of course, when we talk about that salt brine or like the calcium, all of those heads of committees will be here. Heads of operations will be here. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. So staff believes this better reflects council's objective in reaching a target group of lower consumption users, therefore recommend the 0 to 75 cubic meter category. So that's the first change within the water wastewater department. And the second change is we are recommending a rate increase of 5%. Other highlights within the water wastewater departments are for water purchased. We have been advised that there will be a 1.5% increase to the cost of our water. So that has been added to our budget. Contracted services increase based on Aqua budget for 2023. Loan interest, there is an increase because we now have our pipeline loan. And we now have a larger infrastructure loan for the building of the water tower. Under the water department, you'll notice in the yellow pages, we've combined some of our materials account just to make it a little bit clearer for members of council, as well as the water department in regards to expenses. So we've combined certain material accounts. So you'll see the ones that are combined are for your service curb stop, your water main breaks, your hydrant maintenance, your backflow, and your meter pit. So those accounts have all been combined into one. So you will see that for 4 of those 5 accounts, the budget is 0. But for the other one, it has increased drastically to combine all of those expenses. Basically, the same thing for our, I must have hit my button twice. Basically, the same explanation for subcontractor services for the different service curb stop, road repair and restore, and water main breaks. They've all been combined. And I've clearly indicated that on the yellow pages. Under wastewater, we've increased the line item for CCTV inspections, and that is recommended by Aqua. The program needs to be expanded for asset management purposes, so we can find out that really the condition of our infrastructure. And that is the end for the operating budget. Any questions moving forward?
I just have a comment, if I may. The one word I heard so frequently was increase, and I'll be looking at this with great interest.
There are decreases as well. I just didn't feel that you will see them in your binder, and they are outlined on the yellow pages. I just thought it would be more appropriate to talk about the increases at the presentation. You're welcome. Moving on to capital budget. So for 2023, we have 29 proposed capital projects. totaling an investment of $10,917,650. It's okay, Councillor Cornelison, there's an explanation. So the different investment types for the capital projects, you see the numbers here on the screen. For studies and software, the capital investment is $295,000, which represents 2.7% of the total investment. For land improvements, $90,000, which is 0.82%. For vehicles, it's $706,000, which represents 6.47%. Machinery and equipment, $231,400, which is 2.12%. Facilities, $684,000, 6.27%. And linear assets, which is $8,911,250, which represents 81%, of which one project is $8 million. We'll get to that later. So how are we going to fund these projects? From the working capital reserve, we will draw $152,171. From the hydro proceeds for here in Park Hill, and I got all of that explanation last year at budget time, we will use up the remaining $24,229. From the economic development reserve, $40,000. From the facility reserve, $84,000. From the water reserve, $100,000. From the sewer reserve, $60,000. Vehicle and equipment reserve, $736,000. Tax funded projects, and that's basically for the studies and really what is not capital in the proper sense of the term, is $460,000. Future debt, $8 million. OSIF, $686,250. Gas tax, $575,000. For the same total of $10,917,650. So the following few slides outlines the proposed capital projects. So in the administration and studies category, we have a fire master plan, and which is a plan that will help roadmap the fire department expenses for the next 10 years. Similar to what we're doing in 2022. Sorry, I'm getting all my years mixed up with the rec master plan. We will start the process for a zoning bylaw update. We will have a paved road condition assessment, which is basically hiring an engineering consultant to complete approximately 100 kilometers of paved roads to determine what their condition is. And again, that is for our asset management. So we have a better determination of the condition of our roads and help us plan for the long range what needs to be done where. Water engineering studies. This has been recommended by Aqua. Is it by Aqua? Yeah. To address the many issues that we have with our water distribution system. I'm sure you remember hearing the word water loss. This will be one of the items that is going to be looked at during this study. Stormwater drainage studies to develop our stormwater drainage plans and studies for the urban areas within North Middlesex. Structural analysis at the arena, and this is required to be done by law every 5 years. Under land improvements, the purchase of ball diamond netting to protect the skate parks. So we have 2 ball diamonds that are adjacent to a skate park, and to protect our little guys who are enjoying the skate park, it is recommended to put up a netting, and that is part of our capital projects. Under vehicles, there's a few recommended purchases, one of which is one of our community services 2012 pickup truck replacement. Another one is replacing our 2013 Public Works F-250 with a 3/4 ton full-size crew cab. Replacing the 2013 International tandem plow truck. Our 2005 Easy Load 21-ton tag float replacement. Apparently, the current one that we have is very, very, very rusted. And we have been informed that this is the last year that it will get certification. The purchase of a compact 4x4 crew cab. That one is to replace the 2021 F-150 that is in our parking lot and repurpose that one to Public Works. So this compact 4x4 would be for utilization by our drainage superintendent when she goes out for municipal drains, for our water meter reads. So a vehicle that is not as rough and tough as what is sitting in our parking lot right now. That one will be repurposed to Public Works. The replacement or the refurbishing of a trackless MT57 sidewalk tractor. It's our existing 2003, and apparently Trackless has a refurbishing program where they will take your old equipment and refurbish it and make it brand new. Our Public Works manager will have more information for you on that regard during deliberations. Under machinery and equipment, capital project for bunker gear replacement for the fire department. That is a life cycle replacement plan that happens every year. Meter pit installations, that one needs a little bit more detail. It goes from 100, so last year or the year before, this meter pit installation program was put together by the current or the previous manager of infrastructure 2 years ago. And we had budgeted $175,000 per year in order to install these meter pits in our rural areas. This will be addressed as well when we have our water distribution study done. So this year we've reduced the $175,000 capital project to $50,000. Just to have some money in there in case we need and or want to install meter pits this year, but it's not as high as the previous years. Generator at the Ye Olde Town Hall. Ye Olde Town Hall is our alternate emergency operations center. And right now it does not have a generator. So it's not adequate as our alternate EOC. If there was a major power failure, we couldn't operate from there because there's no power. So there is a capital project to purchase a generator for Ye Olde Town Hall. Computer equipment, again, it's a life cycle replacement. It's to update and or replace the computer equipment within the office for everyone who is on the life cycle, and county IT recommends changing every 5 years. So that is the life cycle replacement for computer equipment. Digital sign, not too long ago, I think it was at the last council meeting, we had discussion of having a similar digital sign to what we have here in Elsa Craig. And that will be placed at Ye Olde Town Hall. And that is, I believe, has a $40,000 capital project amount. A new refueling system for our Public Works guys. We currently use Fuel Master. It has, as far as I know, it has never really worked very well. Public Works Manager is recommending changing the system to a different one. And he will have more information for you at deliberation time. Under facilities, the Elsa Craig Rec Center needs a new cooler and needs new flooring. Now the flooring, a portion of it has been replaced recently. This is just to extend, I think there's a smaller room in the back to have the same flooring throughout. So that's the flooring. The Elsa Craig wastewater treatment plant needs a new roof. There is, no, I'm thinking of the salt dome. Yes, it's in bad condition and it needs a new roof for the wastewater treatment plant in Elsa Craig. Mount Carmel Reservoir upgrade design. So it has been recommended by Aqua to establish the priority to the Mount Carmel Reservoir before the Park Hill Reservoir, as the Park Hill Reservoir rehabilitation was included in the Park Hill Main Street rehabilitation program. But then due to rising costs and the amount of the grant, we removed the reservoir rehabilitation from the project. It is now recommended that Mount Carmel is a higher priority in order to increase the storage capabilities of water for the Park Hill area.
I'll just add to that, that's going to have some conversation to it. That will have quite a bit of conversation to it because we've never talked about Mount Carmel in the past. Yes, but Mount Carmel feeds this way, so they have a larger, so, but anyways, there'll be a conversation to back that up, what they're talking about.
The pavilion at Lurie Ball Diamond, a steel roof replacement, is part of the capital projects. The YMCA weight room flooring. Apparently when you're downstairs and there's people working with weights upstairs, you feel like the ceiling is going to come crashing down when they drop the weights. So there is a plan to change the flooring there to make it more of a rubberized flooring to be able to absorb the shock. The Ball Diamond dugout upgrade. In 2022, you will remember that there was a dugout capital project. The manager of recreation did not proceed with that project because he saw other dugouts in neighboring municipalities that are better suited for like the size, the quality, and as well for accessibility. So he shelved the capital project in 2022, and he's presenting a different project in 2023. The William Street Pumping Station, the pump need replacement. That speaks to for itself. Under linear assets, at the corner of Station Street and Mill Street, there is a catch basin that is not draining. So there needs to be a catch basin replacement and sidewalk improvement at that location to improve drainage and the condition of the sidewalk. We're also implementing a new program, capital project that will be coming back every year for sidewalk improvements. So it's to complete sidewalk repairs and improvements on an annual basis. So we've put in a very small amount for this year, and we will judge accordingly as to which amount we want to put in our long-range capital forecast for every year for sidewalk repairs. Our rolling road rehab that we've implemented last year, if you remember last year, we had $875,000 for the rolling road rehab, and it was for gravel roads to re-gravel all of the same gravel, well, not the same, but a lot of gravel roads within the municipality. This year, we've reduced it by the $300,000 that we've added for dust laying material. And it will also include not only gravel road, but portions of asphalt roads that need specific portions of roads that need rehab. The Queen Street Water Main Reconstruction project. That is from the water tower to Mary Street. That is the project that we discussed as well last year during our 2022 budget deliberations. And there was two major projects happening at the time. There was Park Hill Main and there was Queen Street Main. And it was a decision of council that if we received a grant for Park Hill Main, that we would proceed with Park Hill Main. And if there was no grant, then we would finish off Elsa Craig. We did get a grant, obviously you're all aware, and we are doing Park Hill Main. So I've put Queen Street Water Main Replacement, I've slotted it for 2023. That is the $8 million project that we would need financing for. So it is up to council to determine whether we want to delay that to 2024, knowing that there is a development currently being planned in Elsa Craig, and that development we will be discussing a little bit later on tonight. Queen Street gas main relocation in Elsa Craig. It is a project that needs to be done before we proceed with the Queen Street water main reconstruction project, because it would be in the way. So we need to relocate the gas main, and that is one of the capital projects slotted in for 2023. Fernhill Wood Road culvert replacement design. That is a boundary road with Middlesex Center, and they are doing that work. They've slotted it in 2023. So this would be our contribution to this project as per the agreement that we have with adjoining municipalities. And the last capital project is McGuffin Hill Slope Stabilization. I don't have a lot of information, but I think a study has been done, and it is recommended to stabilize the hill, or else we're going to lose it. So that is a capital project for 2023.
Sorry. At this time, let's just take a 5-minute break. All right. Before we move on, and we'll get into part. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were. Sorry, we'll do 4 more slides, and then we'll have, after the budget, we'll have a 5-minute break. All right. Yep, that's fine. After the budget.
Okay, so the long range capital forecast. That's something that was implemented last year to give council a preview of expenses to come within the next 10 years in regards to capital projects. It is a snapshot in time of known pressures. It is a living, fluid document that will change every year depending on things like grant opportunities. We may be able to receive a grant for a certain project that was slotted in 2029, but that may be brought forward. So it is there for a heads up for council members to see what is coming in the next 10 years. I will not show you all of the document in the PowerPoint presentation. I guess that's very tiny, isn't it? But I'm just showing you that within the next 10 years, we have a total of $71 million worth of projects that are $71 million within the next 10 years. So Toronto, like I said, it's a heads up for members of council to see what's coming in the future. Yes, it does. Taxation. So this current draft budget is presented with a 2% municipal tax rate increase. Each additional for council information, each additional 1% is equal and would generate an additional $84,650 in tax revenue. So staff recommending 2%, therefore a total additional revenue of $169,304, which would help prepare us for our $71 million worth of capital projects. Nope. How do I go back one? Can I go? No. Okay, so the slide that I missed was a comparison with our neighboring municipalities for their tax rate increases. So I will just read them out for you. Strathroy Caradoc is an increase of 3%. Again, that one is proposed. It hasn't been approved. Adelaide Metcalf, 2.54% proposed. Lucan Biddulph, 3% proposed. Middlesex Center, 2.5%. That one has been approved. And Thames Center, 3.43%, which has also been approved. You will see that chart in your presentation in your binder. So the next steps, budget deliberations, February 7th, 8th, and 9th, if needed. And the budget approval will be on the last day of deliberations. Again, refer to your yellow pages for justification for any change in a specific line item. And like the mayor said, and this is where I had it slotted in my presentation, if you have any questions when you are reviewing your binder, please send me your questions. I will compile all questions and answers and send them to all members of council for all of their information.
Question now. When can we expect an updated impact assessment?
Sorry, I have no idea. It was supposed to be this year. I have not heard. So that's the end.
So need a motion, just take a 5-minute break. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Teo, all in favor? Carry. All right.